Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Zyxel Security Products webinar, the first webinar of Lockdown 2, I guess, and the mad Trump election. Oh dear. So anyway, seriously, welcome everyone. So what we want to do in this webinar is relatively simple and straightforward, is just going through Zyxel's security products, where we see them in sort of small to medium-sized business space, and some of the sort of useful let's say recommendations and features and so on and so forth that you can go over and explain to your customers to help you sell these products. So with no delay, let's rock on. So obviously Zyxel's been in the security business, actually security device business now, for a substantial amount of time. We've got numerous awards. I could read them all out, I've got notes, but basically they go back for many years. We've got various innovation and cloud and network security awards going back for an awful long while. So this is a product space we've been in for a long while, but perhaps we've not explained it as well as we could do to our resellers. We've been highly recommended from worldwide media for many years, particularly obviously specializing in the small to medium-sized business space. Although our sort of higher end products, particularly the newer ATP and now the Usg Flex products, could be used in the enterprise space, we have concentrated and sort of on the small to medium-sized business space, and that's really our kind of sweet spot. Numerous awards, numerous magazines. I've got PC Pro from a few months ago, and we were one of the highly recommended security products in there for one of the ATP products. So what we're saying is you can go to your customers and you can explain our heritage, our strength, how well regarded we are, and obviously if you'll get copies of these slides afterwards, and obviously you can refer to these recommendations as well. But as I said at the beginning, basically it's all about basically protecting your business network, and particularly in the small to medium-sized business space, which is where we play. Excuse me. What you want to say to your small business customers is that although a lot of them feel, as it says here, 54% of them feel that they are too small for a cyber attack or cyber attackers or hackers to be bothered about their small business. Of course, what they don't realize is it's nothing personal, that a lot of it's automatic. And if you've got a weakness in your network, they will find you. And if you have no protection, they will then absolutely walk all over your network. Another statistic which we were given by our marketing team is basically 60% of small businesses, if they've had a substantial cyber attack, will basically go out of business in no time at all. And the cost of actually restoring business is huge. If you've, just say for instance, you've got 5 desktop PCs or something like that, 5 laptops or something like that. If you think of the amount of configuration and personalization and customization that's gone into them, let alone reloading them or loading them in the first instance, the amount of time it takes to restore, unless you've got a sophisticated sort of disaster recovery solution to get all those devices back, which no small company is going to have, you really are going to have to start again, and that's going to mean huge costs. So basically, the vast number, around about half the size of businesses that get a breach are small businesses. And there's been a huge increase in the amount of activity to trying to search out small businesses, simply because obviously they've got bank accounts, they've got assets that are worth attempting to steal or to transfer money and that sort of thing. So they are a valuable resource to the hackers. And obviously this is one of those crazy statistics. We're basically saying that there's a hack every so many 39, 40 seconds, but obviously take it with a pinch of salt. Another certification which a lot of people aren't aware of, there's a well-regarded internet security labs called Icsa Labs. Now, we've had our products continuously certified by them for over 20 years now, so you can go on their website, look up, say, the USG or the ATP and stuff like that, and look at our security certification. So if they find any issues, they report it back to the manufacturer and it gets fixed and so on and so forth. So it's a very professional organization. The other thing we should point out is that basically we leverage the best sort of partners out there in the security space. So we leverage long-term OEM relationships with McAfee, particularly McAfee and Last Line. Antivirus, we tend to use Bitdefender now, and some of the other UTM features are using Trend Micro and WebRoot type technology. So these are inter-business agreements that we enter into so that we can leverage their engines, their security infrastructures and probes and so on and so forth, and put them into our devices and make that sophisticated enterprise class sort of solution available to the small to medium-sized customer. With all of our solutions, we try to basically have a multi-layered approach to our security solutions. So basically, you've got the left-hand side, which is marked in red, which is basically saying the obvious things that we can block, we block. So that's using threat filtering patterns. So we're looking at URL. Does it match a filtering list? If so, filter it out, block it. Obviously, if you scan something and you find malware, viruses, or so on and so forth, you can block that. Then also with intrusion detection and intrusion prevention, if you detect an intrusion pattern, then you can block it and prevent it. On the other side of the coin, what you can do is obviously you need to characterize certain behaviors and control certain behaviors. And if it's deemed to be risky, then obviously you can control it, you can block it, or you can throttle it in whatever. So for instance, features like geographical enforcement can say no access to China, no access to Russia, or other places, North Korea say. With web filtering, you can classify things and then start controlling access to social media or inappropriate websites, or maybe even government news sites or whatever. But basically, by classifying things, you can then add controlling behavioral filtering to it. You can then look at application filtering as well. So maybe big bulk transfers like FTP, you can block them if they're not appropriate. You can control Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. So you've got, as I said, the one side of it, the products have a traditional blocking type solution, firewall type solution, and then you've got behavioral characteristics, and then you can filter and control those. Now I want to show you a list of our sort of functionality that's built into all of our products, and you can then select these features for your end user. So obviously VPNs in general are a key part to any of our solutions, from a firewalling and remote access requirement. What we also are pointing out here is that our features set also includes VPN High Availability. So with 2 active tunnels, you can load balance and you won't drop connections if one of the devices fails. You can also do WAN load balancing. Nearly all the devices have dual WAN connectivity, so you could have one to a DSL circuit and one to a 4G, 5G circuit. Any of those circuits going down, you'll load balance to the other still functioning circuit, which is obviously the similar thing to what I've just said on the multi-WAN broadband. We also have a thing called virtual tunnel interface. That basically that's the mechanism that gives you the ability to tunnel and create high availability VPNs. Then we have remote access support via SSL VPNs. That tends to be the classic VPN that you want to choose for if you're staying in a hotel or you're behind a certain type of firewall that blocks certain IPsec protocols. We also offer the IPsec protocol suite, so you can use that for another type of remote access solution, which is called Level 2 tunneling protocol, which tends to be built into, we say, Windows 10 now, or even at macOS and that sort of thing. We also realize that some people are not network administrators, so we've got easy configuration wizards to help you create VPNs in the first place. And finally, we're just saying that we're using robust security suites and hashes and algorithms and so on and so forth. So these are high-end VPN suites. Obviously, as I said earlier on, we do provide antivirus features. You can do content filtering, application intelligence up at the layer 7 network part of the stack. So you can classify applications and control them. And as I mentioned earlier on as well, we do have features that enable geographical enforcement. In our higher end solutions, the ATP, we have Sandboxing, which I'll explain later on, but that's a very high end security solution to help deal with unknown and recently released threats. Obviously, we can control botnets and malware. We have intrusion detection and hence intrusion prevention. And we have what's called a reputation filter, which basically matches IP addresses with a real-time database and will block those accesses straight away. They can be very efficient to give you security. And there's some other practical side of things. So I've already said about high availability on the VPN side of it, but we also have high availability at the device level. So when you reach a certain size of device, say for instance an ATP 500, you need a bit more memory and so on and so forth, a bit more processing. By having a matched pair of devices, you can have true high availability. So if one device fails, the passive device will take over seamlessly and continue with your network communications. We also have what's called link aggregation, so you can have multiple circuits to a device so that if one fails, it carries on going. We can do SSL inspection with the right certificates installed, and then we integrate with well-known authentication services, so that's Radius and Active Directory, so you don't have to have duplicated authentication databases. There's a few other, perhaps you could class as non-security related features that the devices also support. So we have integrated Wi-Fi controller. So if you want an on-premise access point controller, all of the devices offer that functionality. And we also have hotspot management where you can print out credits for Wi-Fi access and stuff like that. Although to be honest, nowadays that's replaced more and more by Nebula Cloud and that sort of features. Another feature which shows our sort of intention within the security space is that we have had our devices properly certified by Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure in relation to VPN connectivity into their cloud platforms, so that you can have one of our devices on premise. You might have a lot of services within those types of clouds. The connectivity in those clouds taken care of by a VPN from our device into Amazon or Microsoft's VPN gateways. And those are all, I think there's only like 7 or 8 brands that have actually got the VPN certification taken care of, and we're one of the few ones that have had it done. Excuse me, I'm thirsty. So now I just want to quickly move on to the device sets. So the first classification of devices is what we call the VPN and the SD-WAN gateways. So these are, if you like, going back many years, you might classify these as straightforward firewalls. So they have firewalling functionality, as I said, they've got wireless controllers, device high availability. They can have content filtering licenses applied to them if required, but that's the only licensed feature apart from access point controller that you would apply to these. But these are straightforward firewalls, basically giving firewall control capabilities and VPN capabilities as well. These devices can also be used as part of our SD-WAN solution. So you would buy a VPN device, buy an SD-WAN license, and then you can cloud orchestrate your company's global WANs in a software-defined manner using these devices and the license. So they form 2 parts. They have the VPN side of it, VPN firewalling, but they can also act as a cloud-managed SD-WAN solution. So the next thing, just each of these kind of groups of devices, I'm just going to show you the actual devices. So you've got the lower end Usg 20s, which can act. Sorry, it's actually called the Usg 20 VPN. Bit of a strange name, VPN 20. Then you've got the VPN 50. The lower end devices, they're still around, but obviously from a performance point of view, they're not necessarily as high as the top end VPN devices and the Usg Flexes that are coming out. But each of the slides just shows you the number of interfaces, the stateful packet inspection rate, what the VPN can actually achieve, so on and so forth. So literally you need to just discuss with your customer what the requirements are. Do you need, for instance, dual WAN? What kind of firewall throughput do you need? What kind of VPN throughput do you need? If you were also hoping to integrate access point controller functionality with these, obviously it comes with a certain number of base access point licenses. How many access points in total do you need? You have to buy the licenses for those. So find out what your customer requirement is, add an element of growth through, say, 2 to 3 years, scale your choice of device on those factors. The next series of devices I'm probably going to go through quite quickly, because these are if people have followed our Nebula cloud management platform, they'll know about these security gateways. But these are cloud managed security devices, the NSG series. So obviously the configuration and the management of these is abstracted into the Nebula cloud platform. So it's a slightly different concept. There isn't the local on-premise management of these devices. So if anyone is aware of Nebula, basically you register the device on the platform. power the device up on an internet connected segment. It talks into the platform, understands the registration, and then off you go, and then you manage it via the web interface, the cloud web interface, wherever you are. So it has comprehensive management via the cloud. You can auto deploy these, as I say, as you can all Nebula devices once you've registered it. You can create VPNs simply within the Nebula platform. It really is incredibly simple to create a site-to-site VPN or a remote access VPN for your staff and so on and so forth. We have the equivalent, you could argue, of the kind of USG and Usg Flex UTM type functionality is a cross between the Nebula security services and the UTM feature that is on there. Basically, the UTM functionality, which is antivirus, content filtering, intrusion detection and prevention, and application intelligence, all of those UTM features are enabled via a Nebula security services license. So that's an annual license that has to be valid for the platform to properly work. So you can license that on a points basis, on a per yearly basis, as required, basically. Once again, you've got the various devices, i.e. the portfolio for the Nebula security gateways. So the low-end devices are Nebula 50 and NSG 50. Each NSG comes with a 1 year of professional pack license and 1 year of security signatures licensing. And you can see once again the number of LAN interfaces, the number of WAN interfaces, firewall throughput, VPN throughput, and so on and so forth. So once again, you choose what's appropriate for your solution or your customer's requirements. So the high end being the 300, I'll just go back, the low end being the 50. So the 50, NSG 50, you could use it as a individual employee at home. A cafe perhaps would use an NSG 50 or an NSG 100, and then you move into the 200 and the 300 for bigger properties, maybe more interfaces and more so-called demilitarized zones where you want to segment the network, so on and so forth. Now, the next series of devices is what's called the Usg Flex. So the Usg Flex is what is replacing our very successful and the product range called the Usg that's been out for quite a long while now. So the Usg Flex is a completely refreshed platform, additional features, additional technology, and it is now completely released. I'll come to that in the end of the presentation. So basically, if you were to be a USG person, you now want to think USG Flex, but you also want to be aware of where the USG Flex is coming from. So it's built on a new hardware platform, so this is a substantial performance improvement. It has additional enhanced UTM features, particularly things like the counterterrorism related lists, which is a key requirement for the UK educational system. If you can't filter some of these lists, the school wouldn't get sign off on the security gateway, and hence, obviously, they won't get the proper funding. Once again, these devices give you wireless controller functionality, and they have device high availability at a certain device level. One of the things I just mentioned is that the Usg Flex introduces additional capabilities, and one of these is what's called Express Mode. And you can see a table here in relation to firmware releases and our other security platform, the ATP. So what Express Mode is basically it's leveraging the cloud rather than have to have a very large on-premise database in terms of your scanning and comparisons. It's leveraging the cloud, so it's passing hashes up to the cloud for the cloud to do the confirmation or denial. And that way you can get a much greater, so not so much scan, but the scale of what it's actually, what the device is actually able to deal with is hugely increased because you're leveraging the cloud engine. So you've still got a relatively small physical size box on premise, but it's leveraging our cloud engines and our suppliers' cloud engines to actually do the security scanning for you by using hashes and stuff like that. What we've got here is the table of the advantages of hash mode against performance and cost and negatives and so on and so forth. So you can see that if it's switched on, you get a huge performance increase. But obviously one of the disadvantages is it won't work in an isolated environment because obviously it requires the internet connectivity to transfer the hash to the internet, our cloud engine, and for the cloud to be involved in the actual scanning process. Then there's deep scan mode, which basically is doing signature matching within the hardware engines on the device. So that will support an offline mode of working. But obviously the throughput can be limited by the hardware because you're not able to leverage the capabilities of the cloud. And then there's a hybrid mode, which only the ATP supports because it's got bigger memory and so on and so forth. So there are still some higher end features in the ATP that the USG doesn't currently have. The next thing we need to show is basically, this is showing the previous USG models versus its replacement Usg Flex model, and you can see the difference in the firewalling throughputs and the UTM throughputs. So if you're on the sort of USG 40 lower end device space, you can see that you can basically only do about 50 megs of UTM, whereas with the newer devices, say for instance you pick a USG Flex 100, your UTM rate is nearly, not quite, an order of magnitude greater, and also your firewall performance is almost double, and that goes up and up and up as you go up in the ranges, basically. So there's a table that shows you, if you've got an older USG device, what you would convert to in the way of USG Flex. Once again, these are the USG Flex portfolio models. So we have the 100 through to the 500 on these slides. So once again, you've got, I would want to say run of the mill, but a fairly capable device in the USG Flex 100. It's still got 2 WAN ports, a good firewall throughput performance, and UTM capabilities. And then you go up to the 200 and then 500, where you're adding more LAN interfaces, more WAN interfaces, higher performance, so on and so forth. I haven't got the slides at the moment, but we've just got on this month's parts list, that there is a USG Flex 100W model. So that is basically a device with a built-in wireless access point. So the USG Flex 100W is added to the range. And then at the higher end, we've now got a USG Flex 700 model. That's out as well. What the next few slides are going to do is just show you that basically one of the things I should have said about the USG Flex, similar to USG, you can buy the device on its own. So if you wanted to use it as a basic firewall, you could do, or you can bundle it with a license package. So we sell in this country an unbundled device and a bundled device. So the bundled device comes with the device and a full license bundle. But what you can do, one of the slight differences in the USG Flex is that you will be able to break out the licensing and just buy certain features that you might only need rather than just the bundle. So what this section is doing is basically it's talking about service migration as well. But basically these individual licenses, you can fine-grained choose those licenses basically with the USG Flex, whereas perhaps you could argue USG wasn't quite as flexible as that. So what the license migration is saying as well is that if you've got a USG device and you want to migrate to a USG Flex, what we're doing is we're taking the longest outstanding license that is left. In this instance, it's 7 months of web filtering. Then we're going to flatten that. So we're going to say 7 months across the lot for all of them. And then when you buy your USG Flex, which comes with 12 months, we will then add your outstanding 7 months across the board. So for a lot of those services, you're getting a free additional 7 months or a certain number of months. And that's what you're getting. So basically, we're giving you a migration path from your outstanding USG licensing to a bundled USG Flex licensing period. I hope that makes sense. Then we move on to let me move on to our ATP product range. So this is what is called our advanced threat protection range. So these are slightly more higher end than the USG Flex, although some of the features of the ATP was introduced over the last year. Some of the technology that was developed for the ATP is also being used in the USG Flex range, but not all of it. So the ATP, it leverages, once again, a new high-performance hardware platform. It has wireless function. It has wireless controller functionality. It has enhanced UTM. It has the URL threat filtering technology, and it also has device high availability once you get to the 500 or higher device number system. What the Usg Flex doesn't have, and the ATP does have, is the sandboxing technology, which I'll go over in a minute. And this is to help with getting to grips with the so-called zero-day vulnerabilities. So these are security threats that people haven't discovered yet, and that signature analysis and heuristics won't find, but they are very suspicious and can be picked up with some clever technology called sandboxing. So basically what we're saying here is the ATP is trying to go beyond the traditional kind of conventional UTM. So whereas it uses signatures and heuristics and reputational methods, the ATP goes beyond that and it uses some clever zero-day detection technology. So in a sort of traditional environment, you've got a lot of things that you know are good and perhaps are probably good, and you can use spam filtering and antivirus and so on and so forth to pick that up. And that it means when you're doing the scanning, you can work out what's suspicious and what's known to be bad. But there are a lot of sort of grey areas, basically, which UTM mechanisms, traditional mechanisms, won't find. So, unfortunately, as everything in life, there's a grey area. So, what the ATP does is it basically those elements that can't be identified, the grey areas. We use the sandboxing technology to try and help us with that. So basically, what we call sandboxing is basically trying to conquer the unknown threats. Basically, the zero-day threats tend to be way more sophisticated, and they're hidden in ways that you would not normally sort of expect. So what we do with the sandboxing and the cloud intelligence, it identifies incoming threats in real time using a database and machine learning and so on and so forth. And these grey areas and unknown security threats, excuse me, they get sent over to our internet connected cloud security platform, and they get put into what's called a sandboxing, which is essentially a secure environment whereby we actually execute or run or analyze the unknown threats within a secure virtualized manner. If we don't like what those attachments or data patterns do, so for instance, say something like a PDF or an executable or a Word document tried to reconfigure the network interface on a Windows operating system or a Linux operating system or something like that, clearly no attachment should be doing something like that is innocent. So if when it executes and analyzes the threats, it looks very suspicious, it just destroys it. It sends it over to a conceptual shredder, if you like. And it also then feeds back to all the ATPs and also ultimately some of the other Usg Flex engines that these particular patterns and attachments and so on and so forth are very suspicious and should be blocked and not allowed through. And this happens on a global basis, and then the cloud engines are updated so that there's a huge sort of positive feedback cycle for this. So once you detect that something is suspicious, then that gets added to the signature databases, which then means going forward, the detection rate goes up for the simple sort of heuristic detection mechanisms. So basically what we're trying to say is that this is a global security system. It's going on in real time all the time. All of the ATPs that are connected into the cloud database share the knowledge and signatures that they detect. So you're assured with the ATP that you can basically proactively counter these zero-day threats using the sandboxing solutions and the cloud engines that we've leveraged, basically. And what we wanted to highlight, basically, that basically the ATP product line leverages these kind of enterprise class solutions, by a company called Lastline. And they are a leader in this solution space. So if you look at Lastline over in the top right-hand corner here, you've got a graph which is the total cost of ownership for protecting a certain amount of bandwidth against the security effectiveness. So the high-end companies like Fortinet and Checkpoint and Cisco, you can see what the cost and effectiveness of their solution is, and you can see that Lastline is even higher than them along with Trend Micro, who we also have agreements with, yet their cost is substantially less by the way we've leveraged the technology, and we amortize those costs to everybody. So what we're showing you is that we are a security solution. Basically, its effectiveness is incredibly high, yet its cost effectiveness is also high. So you're getting the best of both worlds. And once again, we move on to our portfolio of products for the ATP, and you'll see that they look very similar to the Usg Flex. So once again, number of interfaces, the throughputs, the UTM throughputs, the VPN throughputs, and how many wireless controllers you need. You just choose the kind of device again, and off you go. What I also need to point out with the ATP, the way the licensing works for this is that an ATP solution comes with what's called a gold pack license, and that enables all of the features of the ATP product, and you have to have a valid gold security pack license for the device to properly function. Obviously, these need to be renewed on a 1 yearly or a two yearly basis, or whatever license you buy. Excuse me. Another important aspect of any security solution is actually to be able to report on it, to be able to monitor and report on it, and that is where we come into that. The solution comes into its own with a platform called Secure Reporter. So once again, that's a cloud platform, cloud analytical platform, centralized, basically, and it allows you to send all of your sort of security analysis and reporting up to this Secure Reporter cloud engine from the devices. So that's from Usg Flexes, from the ATPs up to Secure Reporter, and it then does the analytics and the reporting and the alerting for you. It's multi-tenanted, so you can do with multiple multiple customers. But what it does is taking, as I said, all of the log data and the application data and the security data, transferring over to the Secure Reporter platform. And then you've got normalized time and data extraction and visualization sent into it as well from the device, the on-premise device analytics. And then the Secure Reporter cloud platform then can create dashboards. You can do sort of weekly or monthly or daily reports, and obviously it can alert as well. But the great thing about the Secure Reporter, in a much more graphical, easy to understand way, it can show you sort of the who, the what, and the when, as people call it. So basically, it allows you to drill into data, see what people are doing, who's been up to no good, what the kind of threats are, what were they targeting. So were they targeting some sort of maybe web service that you run or offer, I don't know, payment gateway, whatever. But basically, it allows you to see that kind of activity in a graphical way, because if you've ever looked at security logs, because the internet is so horrendously noisy and the threats are going on all the time, you'll be hard pressed to actually properly detect those threats without a visualization platform. So what it allows you to do is find out who's doing what. So it allows you to have an anonymous or partially anonymous user configuration, and then that allows the IT administrators to look at what the threats were, who they were targeted at, or perhaps a particular type of user is up to no good, and you can then keep an eye on them and change your policies, so on and so forth. What I also mentioned, basically, you can manage all your clients in one place. So if you're a reseller or a service provider, it's an ideal platform to support multiple clients. And so you can provide analytics to your customers. You can customize the reports with their branding or your branding. You can schedule the reports to automatically be sent to your customers, and so on and so forth. We also can help you to achieve GDPR compliance by stripping up data as appropriate, so you can be non-anonymous, so you can understand who's who, or you can be partially anonymous, as you can see here, so personal data is replaced by an artificial ID, or it can be fully anonymous. We don't have the ability to, and we do not look at personal data on the wire. It's all sort of aggregated information, and so on and so forth. So you can basically go to this Secure Reporter URL. There's you can get trial licenses for it as well. You do a small amount of configuration for Secure Reporter on the device, on the on-premise device, and off you go. And then it starts reporting via Secure Reporter. This is just a summary of the Security Portal licensing that is required. The bundled licenses for the Usg Flexes and the ATP come with Security Portal, but you can get an additional Security Portal licensing for years 2, so on and so forth. Nearly at the end, everyone. What I did want to add, because a lot of people aren't aware of it, I call it here, as you can see here, so warranty, next models, and Nebula. Network security devices, clearly a critical devices. Nearly all of your traffic is going through them. If a device fails, you need that device replaced quickly. We have what we call our next business day advanced replacement services agreements. So basically, the red highlighted UK part number is basically a security device is classed as a gateway. So a 4-year next business day warranty uplift for a gateway device, it's less than £40, I believe, and that's including taxes and so on and so forth, which most people aren't going to pay. So it's, to my mind, and that applies to switching and wireless as well if you want to use it. But I'm pointing out to people the advanced replacement warranty uplift at the time of purchase, to me, seems a no-brainer. It would be mad not to do it. Then the other thing is, obviously, we've got new models coming out, which is basically the Usg Flex 700 and the Usg Flex 100W, which are now properly out. Apologize, I didn't have the updated slides for them. They've not been published yet. But the actual specification sheets, in terms of data sheets, are available online. The other important thing about the Usg Flex is that next year, the Usg Flex will be supported on the Nebula platform, which is why the Usg Flex is called Flex, as in we've got Nebula Flex switches. The Usg Flex will be Nebula capable early next year. Now, ultimately, the ATP will go to Nebula as well much later on next year. So you can see that we're giving people still the opportunity to have an on-premise security device, but if you want to leverage and have a sort of a cloud, a centralized, completely managed by the cloud platform, we're going that way as well. And the only reason I put this URL on here is you can read the blog behind what's going on over there. So we've reached the end. Sorry, it's run over a little bit longer than I thought. So I've also got, if you're not aware of our MSP campaign that's going on at the moment, if you go over to this URL msp.zyxel.com, you see what the MSP Evolve website is about. So basically, it's just to help our IT resellers create network services using the Nebula platform, and we have this MSP Evolve program, which if you sign up to it, go through some training and some webinars to help guide you, and then you become an MSP partner, and it gives you additional discounts on products and so on and so forth. So thank you very much indeed. I will go to this side. I will stay around. If anybody has got any questions, more than happy to try and answer them now. So I will stay around. If I can't answer them now and it requires product manager feedback or something like that, I will get in touch with them and get them to help answer it. But thank you very much for your time. Stay safe. I hope the next month is as calm and sensible as it can be, and I hope to see you again in the future. Thank you very much indeed. And as I say, I'll stay around for some questions.